Hello again everybody, and happy Easter. This most strange of Easters. I've been thinking today that I might talk about the very first Easter, and in particular some of the bit part players. In my recent talks I've been thinking about famous events or famous people, looking at things from a different point of view. So that's kind of my theme for today. So I've been thinking about the soldiers and the guards who were involved with the crucifixion of Jesus and also the subsequent events. It also gives me a chance to tell my favourite John Wayne story, in fact my only John Wayne story. He was playing the part of a centurion in filming a scene to do with the crucifixion, and he delivered his line, which is a quote from St Matthew's Gospel, "Truly this was the Son of God." And he didn't give a sufficiently persuasive performance, so the director said, "John, you need to give it a bit more awe. So John Wayne then turned to the camera and said, truly this was the Son of God." Anyway, that's as good as my jokes are going to get. So, thinking about the soldiers. First of all, the soldier who was the centurion at the foot of the cross. This is what St Matthew's Gospel has to say. When the centurion and those who were with him were guarding Jesus saw the earthquake and all that had happened, they were terrified and exclaimed, "Surely he was the Son of God." In another Gospel, the centurion is quoted as saying, "Surely he was a righteous man." But that's a first-hand witness to the crucifixion. So it clearly had a powerful effect on somebody as cynical and hard-bitten as a Roman soldier. And it's that idea of what it was like being a Roman soldier that I want to think about and I want you to share with you. So if you were a Roman soldier, you would very likely be living a long way from home. You weren't posted in your home province, you did your training and then you got sent out to wherever it was you were going to be a soldier. And you never got sent out into your home province because you might side with the natives, so you'd be a security risk. So it's very likely you'd be surrounded by hostile people because they didn't really want you to be there because you were a representative of the occupying powers. You'd very likely have been fulfilling unpopular policies. You'd be supporting the taxation authorities, for instance. You'd be imposing somebody else's rule of law rather than your traditional rule of law. In order to get to where you were, you would have suffered very tough, brutal even, training in order to become a member of the Roman army. You'd be signed on for 20 to 25 years, depending on whether you're a legionary, that is, you're a citizen, or an auxiliary, a non-citizen hoping to become a citizen at the end of your time. So you're in the army for a very long time. Promotions are few and far between. There's not many ways to get up the ladder. First of all, you might become an optio, which is kind of like a deputy centurion. You might then reach the heights of being a centurion in charge of 80 to 100 men. But beyond that, then there was the officer class, and you were either on the officer training or you were just an ordinary soldier. So the people mentioned in the Gospels are all ordinary soldiers. The pay that you got, you actually saw very little of because money, you were paid a theoretical amount and then money was deducted for your clothes, for your housing, for your weapons, for everything, and a substantial deduction was made for your burial fund to provide for your funeral should you be killed in the course of being a soldier. You might very well be in a climate that's not like your home country. So the people who served in Britain came from the other end of the empire. The people who were serving in Judea very likely came from somewhere else altogether. So you might not like the weather very much either. What did you do with your time off? Gambling. Lots of soldiers gambled. Drinking. Pretty much every soldier drank. Brothels. Everywhere there's a Roman camp, there's evidence of gambling and drinking and womanizing. A large part of your time would have been spent on sentry duty, guarding things, and this is the key thing I want to plant in your mind today. If you were felt to be not doing your guard duty properly, you could suffer very severe punishments indeed. The worst one was decimation, where every 10th man was killed by 9 of his fellow soldiers, because if you didn't do your proper duty on guard duty, on sentry duty, you were putting everybody else's life at risk. So decimation was a real possibility. Now let's think about the soldiers in the story of the crucifixion. We've now got a missing body. It's Easter Day. It's not our fault. At least nobody cares. It's a far distant province. It's one leader that nobody was that bothered about. But according to Matthew's Gospel, the chief priests and indeed Pontius Pilate were quite worried about what the outcome might be. And so this is what was said. While the women were on their way, some of the guards went into the city and reported to the chief priests everything that had happened. That is, finding the tomb empty. When the chief priests had met with the elders and devised a plan, they gave the soldiers a large sum of money, telling them, "You are to say, his disciples came during the night and stole him away while we were asleep. If this report gets to the governor, we will satisfy him and keep you out of trouble." When the soldiers took the money the soldiers took the money and did as they were instructed. And this story, according to Matthew, has been widely circulated amongst the Jews to this very day. Now, although that might have been the story that did the rounds, I'm pretty doubtful as to whether that actually is going to hold historical water. If you thought that you were going to admit that you hadn't done your sentry duty properly, you would have lain yourself open to decimation. And I can't imagine how big the sum of money must have been in order to persuade you to lay yourself open to that. So what did happen? And what did the soldiers really believe? Was it, as in one gospel, surely this was a righteous man? Or was it, as John Wayne's centurion said, truly this was the Son of God?